Welcome to another episode of Sabine's Common Sense. I'm your host, Sabine, the Purpose Lawyer. Thank you for listening and thank you for helping me be on purpose. So today we're going to talk about purpose and what purpose is, right? And I can't actually tell you what your purpose is, but I can tell you what your purpose is not, right? It's not your job. We always think that it's going to be your job, it's going to be your career, but it's not those things. It's actually the thread that actually permeates all the areas of your life and actually ties everything together. And so for me, what I realized that my purpose is to help people, right? I like helping people. And I thought that law was going to be the way to do that. It turned out it was not exactly how I thought, but I thought that I wanted to be an entertainment law. I thought I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer and it was going to be fancy. And I realized that that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So I found that because I couldn't get into entertainment law at the time, I found it in other areas of the law. And so in doing that, I found that I can help people in other ways. I didn't have to pivot a lot. I just pivot a little. And so my guest today, funny enough, had a similar story to mine, but she actually got into entertainment law and then realized it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. Wasn't exactly what she expected, but she found another way to help people within the law. So if you're if you're a person that actually got to where you wanted to be, and then you looked around and you realize it's not exactly what you wanted, you can still find your purpose. Maybe you just have to pivot a little. So hopefully you find your answers in this interview. Welcome, Rashidah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excited to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming. I'm so excited to talk to you. We haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah,
A couple of
exactly.
years.
Yeah. But I'm so glad to be here. I'm just like, your platform is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So for those of you who don't know her, I'm sitting with Rashidah Siddiqui. She's an attorney extraordinaire. She's very experienced. And we're going to kind of just talk about your journey and how you got here and what the road was like.
Okay.
So did you always, okay, I kind of hate this question, but I feel like I always have to ask it when I'm talking to lawyers. Did you always want to be an attorney? Like what was that path like?
You know what? Surprisingly, yes.
Oh, really?
I tell people the story is, I remember in elementary school, like my teacher, Miss Purdy, had us write an article and we had to interview somebody what we wanted to be.
Okay.
And I interviewed my aunt's husband, who was a lawyer at that time.
Ah.
And I found this like elementary school paper that I wrote. And like I found this when I was in law school.
Oh, wow.
And it was about me being an attorney. So I always wanted to be an attorney. I didn't know what type of attorney. I just knew I wanted to be one.
Right.
So the answer to that is actually surprisingly yes.
Yes, that's funny. My answer is yes too, but I didn't know either. I didn't know like what type of law, why did I want to be an attorney? What does that mean? It's just kind of like, that was the thing that I thought I wanted to do.
And I think that actually probably like is why I'm still practicing law, because it was like innately in me and just like something that I wanted to do. It wasn't something that somebody pressured or my family was like, you have to be a lawyer, or your friends were like, well, this is the thing to do.
Right.
It was just like, I kind of knew when I was small, I wanted to be a lawyer.
And you kept that thread along the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you not quite along the way because it kind of diverged when I went to college.
Okay.
I thought I wanted to be a filmmaker at the time. So I went to Howard University.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Howard.
HU.
HU, okay. Now, that wasn't me. That wasn't my story. I wish it was, but I'm happy for you.
Yes. And I was in the School of Communications.
Okay.
And this was like when A Different World was on and all of this stuff. So I was like, I'm going to be a filmmaker. I'm going to do direct movies. This is like Hype Williams and all of that was going on in the background. So I was initially a film production major.
Oh, okay.
With a PR minor. So I was just full School of Communications and kind of just stayed on that platform. And surprisingly, at School of C, they had like this kind of minor called legal communication.
Oh.
And I was like, what is that? And I spoke to my counselor. They were like, well, you need some extra credits. Take this kind of like other thing that you need to do. And it was about entertainment law and just like the kind of the background about doing, working with clients, being an attorney, and that type of stuff. So then I was like, film production isn't exactly exciting me right now because I was like doing stuff and I was like, this isn't kind of what I want to do. Maybe I'll just kind of pivot into legal communication.
Okay.
And that's how I decided, well, lawyer.
Okay.
And surprisingly, when I was going through the route of like being production, I hadn't thought about that essay that I had written when I was in like, elementary school about being a lawyer.
Right.
It was film production, directing movies and videos and stuff like that. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, because sometimes we put things out there and then it kind of draws us to it without us really knowing.
Exactly. And just kind of like, just how my story goes on how I'm practicing now, it just seems like things kind of not just happen to me, but it's been along that line of what my passion is.
Okay.
So even transitioning to what I do now, it's just a funny story, which we'll discuss, we can get into as well. But yeah, it wasn't, I started doing film work and stuff like that. I think I was like on, what's that show that Nanda Williams was to have?
Nanda Williams
on BET. And it was like a talk. It was a talk show, and that was
was it her show? Or Nanda Williams?
She was hosting it.
Okay.
And everyone at Howard kind of did their internship on that. So like, there's times I'm like in the crowd, or I'm like doing some slight PR and stuff like that. But that was it for the first couple of years at Howard. I didn't change my minor until my junior year, and then I was like, okay, I'm thinking about law school and taking those classes. And I met an entertainment lawyer attorney, and it was a young female attorney.
Okay.
And she came to speak on career day. And she was just amazing. And I literally was like, wow.
That's what I want to do.
Yes. It was one of those moments when, one, you see a female Black attorney.
Right.
And then she's in entertainment, and she was like really powerful in explaining what she did. And I was like, okay, this encompasses entertainment. She's a young Black attorney, and I'm in love with her. And I'm going to go
already.
Exactly. I'm like, this is the field I'm going into.
Yeah.
And that was my trajectory. Entertainment law. I started applying to law school, and
wow.
I'm there.
So a lot of things there. One, representation matters, right?
Yes.
So like seeing someone that looks like you in a position that you want to be in, that is awesome. But what was it about just in case anyone's interested in the filmmaking, what was it about that you didn't like? It's like the actual doing the thing.
Yeah, it was the mundaneness of it. Like, I think whatever your passion is, like everything's going to have like their not so great days. And, you're going to have like, doing the work every day, but you have to actually have a passion for it to get through those mundanes. And I was like, just the behind the scenes. I was like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was more of like watching television and was like, I'm going to direct.
I want that. Yeah.
All of a sudden the product is there.
Right.
But then all of the behind the scenes on what you need to do, casting, getting, coming up with like your ideas, and it just wasn't me.
Okay.
It wasn't. I have friends that continue to be the great filmmakers today, and that was their passion. But I was just like, this is work.
This is work.
It felt like it was work. And I was like, I didn't want to do something that felt like was work. It felt like it should be natural.
Right. All right. So now you're interested in entertainment law. You're doing all the things. You're applying to law school. And when you got into law school, did you feel at home? Did you feel like?
So surprisingly, after I went to Howard University, I ended up going to Yeshiva University, Benjamin and Cardozo Law School afterwards, back to New York. So people always convert. They were like, you went from a historically Black college university to
historically Jewish.
Exactly. And I was like, yeah, the pivot was, but it was also I think either number 1 or number 2 in the country for intellectual property and entertainment. So I was like, okay, this is the field I want to go into. They came in and they were like, we're recruiting, Black students to come into the law school. They gave me a nice little package because, money still has to, law school is expensive.
Exactly. That's
so
awesome.
that was, staying on there and making sure the bills were being paid, and I got some scholarship money. And yeah, so I was probably out of our class, maybe 5 persons of color.
Wow.
So when I got there, even though it was in the heart of New York, right there on Fifth Avenue, it was just not many of us.
Just not enough. Okay.
And immediately I went to like the Black Law Students Association. It was like, okay, we're gonna do as much as we can and make sure that we're known and we get, entertainment stuff and getting involved. So that part of it made me feel welcome into.
Was there like a culture shock? Did you feel
it was a culture shock?
Okay.
It was definitely a culture shock. As I said, you would think being in the heart of New York, there wouldn't be a culture shock, but also coming from Howard, where I was just surrounded by people that just looked like me and just felt like me, and then just it was definitely a culture shock.
Okay.
And then law school was a culture shock. It's a different way of thinking. And even though I got the scholarship, I was also working while I was in law school for the entire 3 years. So
Wow. You were working in entertainment still?
I was working at Comedy Central.
Oh.
I got an internship through Comedy Central. So I was working there part-time in their legal department. So I was going to law school during the day, working part-time, sometimes during the day between classes, going and coming back after classes and after work. So that was going on. So I didn't really feel connected with being a law student.
Okay.
But as I said, Black Law Students Association kind of like they kind of brought me in. And then I've always been kind of a person that like, let's just take things on. So I ended up running for like president of Ball. So I was like, you don't have enough other things to do.
Right.
This is what you're going to do.
Right. I'm an intern work and
be, social activist and making sure that our name and we're being taken care of in this law school and making sure we're heard.
Right.
So that made me feel more welcome.
Okay.
And that's kind of been always my theme is like, wherever I'm going to go, I'm going to make sure that I belong there just as much as you do.
Yeah.
So you're going to make sure that you hear me.
Yeah. Talk about that. Like, where did that come from? Because that's one of the things that I found challenging is feeling welcome, feeling like I belong, like paving my own lane or what have you. How did you already have that?
Big family, fighting. I'm one of, on my dad's, I'm originally from Grenada.
Okay.
And I have 9 other siblings. My grandmother has like, I think maybe 40 grandchildren.
Oh, wow. She wasn't kidding.
Yeah. She had 9 children. She had 11 children, one passed away, but a huge family. And it was always like, even though we're huge, we just knew that you were meant to do something and you have to get in there and fight for you and make sure you're heard. And I think growing up in that type of family was how when I went to law school, when I went to college, it was just like stand out. I'm the second oldest. Okay. So I'm also kind of like the leader, responsible for everyone. So that also kind of also helped me with taking on leadership roles and just knowing I have to hunker down. Classes. I have to make sure I make the grades. I have to make sure I go to, get to Comedy Central on time and get back to study with my study group. And also, if we're having a Balsa event, make sure that's taken care of. So it was just compartmentalizing, and I'm a Capricorn. So.
Okay.
So I like
that explains it.
Yes, I like astrology, and they were like Capricorns are leaders. Michelle Obama.
Oh,
so Mary J. Blige is some good
company.
Exactly. So that kind of just made me always just know I had to make myself heard, and that's kind of what I've been doing.
That's super dope. And so now you're in law school, you're doing all the things, and you're still focused on entertainment law. Did you pursue that when you graduated?
So no.
Okay.
I graduated in 2002.
Okay.
And there was a recession going on. And the law firms weren't hiring.
Wow.
And it was very, very hard.
Okay.
So actually, once again, it kind of just been like focus on what needs to be done. My focus was I needed to pass the bar.
Okay.
So I decided to take both New York and New Jersey bar at the time. And for that summer, I just was like, you know what? I'll figure out what happens with work, but I just need to pass the bar because if I don't pass the bar, all of this is for naught.
Right.
So after I took the bar, started looking for things and was finding nothing. I mean, and I was networking during law school. I was going to like all the entertainment industry events for like, Black law students and I had worked at the Authors Guild. So I did all of those kind of like check mark things. But reality was we were in a recession and they weren't hiring lawyers at that time, especially first year lawyers. So decided to temp.
Okay.
People don't realize it. A lot of places take temp lawyers.
I didn't realize that either. Right.
So I decided there was an agency and they were looking for temporary attorneys and they put you into different firms or they put you into, I went to the Attorney General's office and was basically working as if like you would have thought I came through got hired by the AG's office, but it was through a temp agency. I was working with the other attorneys, getting paid like the other attorneys. It was the Environmental Protection Agency, which was far from anything I wanted to do.
Right.
But as I said, recession, rent had to be paid. So that was how I started initially after law school, was going through a temp agency. But then focused and knew that I didn't want to stay in environmental law. This was just to pay the rent at the time and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I also wasn't quite 100% sure that I wanted to do entertainment law.
See, that's interesting.
Yes.
Because once you go through, then you're like, but there's so many options of what I could do.
Exactly. That's the one thing that, I mean, plenty of things about law school, but you don't really have to focus on, you couldn't say you want to do a particular area, but the good thing about it, there's so many areas of law and you can pivot into another area. You don't have to stick with that area that you wanted to do.
Right.
So just also kind of the same thing. I went to Comedy Central, was working there doing like entertainment contract work. And then I was at the Authors Guild doing some work there as well while I'm in law school. And just once again realizing I didn't quite like entertainment law, the grunt part of it. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And speaking with other entertainment lawyers, they were like, well, you may want to pivot and become a manager. And I was like, that's not what I wanted to do. Or you need to go into like a boutique law firm that does entertainment, and that's where you kind of get where you want to do.
Just for people who are listening, so like what we're describing is like the background work is the actual reading contracts after contracts and making adjustments and, going back and forth. And that's what it takes, right? But sometimes when you think, I want to be an entertainment lawyer, it sounds a little bit more glamorous. You think there's going to be a lot more fun involved. And so that's what you were faced with. You're like, actually, this is
not the grunt work. And once again, it always goes back to, you can deal with the grunt work if you're doing your passion.
Right.
Because every field is going to have grunt work. But what's your passion and what's going to get you through the day? And doing that contract work was not what I wanted to do. And as I said, from the kind of speaking with mentors along the way, being a manager wasn't also what I wanted to do. So I was like, well, now I don't know what I want to do. I have this law degree. I'm temping in like the Environmental Protection Agency for the AG's office. I'm far off scale on anything in my career. What am I going to do? And I need to figure out. And, that's life. Sometimes you just got to figure things out as you go. And a friend of mine was leaving her job and she was doing real estate law. And she was like, well, come, leave the AG's office because you're basically crying every day. And you can work with, this small law firm. You do real estate and stay there for a couple of months and then figure out what you want to do in entertainment. And that's how I ended up where I am. Which is like going on 18, 19 years.
Oh my gosh, you found the thing, guys.
Yes, it is. And behind it is always about the passion. Like I start thinking about, even when I was coming here, I was like, kind of my path, like what was the underlying theme of it? And it was always that I knew my heart. Or what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be in a big law firm. So I knew that wasn't the avenue. Even as being going into entertainment, I knew I wanted to work hands-on with people.
Talk about why big law is not attractive, because sometimes people think about that and they think just because it's money, right? They think about the money. But people who think past that kind of realize maybe it's not the right thing. Well, why wasn't it right for you?
Because once again, the money would have been probably great, but the amount that you give up to get that, you have no life. Like you have no life for family, for friends. You're committing to working, really just working your entire life for these big firms. And they're going to want those billable hours. You're going to be there until midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., making those hours, especially in the beginning of your career. And you're really looking through the paperwork. You're not doing anything but in a small little cubicle looking through that paperwork. And that was kind of the big law firm experience. They were like, get in there for the first 5 or how many years and just
do it.
Do it.
Give it away.
Exactly.
Right.
And I have friends that did that, and they paid off loans and stuff like that, and they got out and they never went back, which is unfortunate because as people of color, we're not up on the tier on these firms, and we need to be. But I think because of what that encompasses so much of giving of yourself, those first couple of years, it kind of burns you out.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you don't want to be burnt out. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, you're right. That's the path. People do it because they just deal with it for that period of time. But if that's not your passion, like you said, maybe you can't even make it through that 5-year period. So you knew that wasn't for you. So what did you think about next?
Yeah. So I knew that I needed to be somewhere where I can have a life, kind of a balance. I also knew that I wanted to work hands-on with clients because that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to help individuals. And so going with that, when my friend told me to come to this small law firm, I was like, oh, this is great. I didn't know real estate. But I was like, I'm a learner.
Right.
I can learn, it's contract work. I'm familiar with contract work. I can read. I can, do those things. And she said, just come and see how it is for a couple of months. And if you don't like it, you go back to temping or you figure something else. And you just have to have that flexibility about it. So once I met now he's my partner in the law firm. But when I met the person at the time, John Serpico, who was the owner of the law firm, we just kind of sat down and had a conversation. It was an interview, but it was more of a conversation about life. What did you want to do? Where do I see myself in 5 years? How did I get to him? And we just clicked. We literally clicked and spoke for maybe 2 hours. I don't think he looked at my resume once.
Really?
Honest to this day, I told him, I was like, I don't think you looked at my resume or my law school transcript.
At all.
And at the end of the interview, he was like, when can you start?
Oh, awesome.
And it was because we just, once again, kind of vibed and was talking. And even with that, once I started, I was like, oh, I got the job now.
Yeah, like, okay.
What do I do next? It's real estate. I don't know anything about real estate. And he was going on vacation that summer.
Oh, boy.
And it was like, you're going to have the run of the law firm because his father had just recently passed away. So it was actually just him and his paralegal. And then I was coming on as an attorney. His father
had started the firm.
Yes. So it was him and his father. His father was doing like tax work. He was doing real estate and like trust and estates work. And then I was coming in to do the real estate and help him out. And I didn't have any experience. So my friend who was leaving, she was working with him as his intern when she was in law school. My best friend. And she said, I'll just, in the nighttime, I'll go over contracts with you and go highlight them. And literally we would sit there and she would highlight with a highlighter the contracts and explain every term and scenarios and things like that. And I would have that when I'm going with clients. I had my little cheat sheet and was giving advice and kind of really just put your head to the ground and figured it out.
Right.
And had him as a mentor.
That's good. That's good.
So even though I'm saying this, I'm like big on mentors because the entire time you see representation.
Yeah. I was going to say, how important is mentorship? Is it to you and how has it sort of helped you? I'm assuming it was.
Mentorship is very important. I think in any aspect of life, whether you decide to be an attorney, whatever field, you have to have a mentor. And you have multiple mentors. For me, just seeing the lady when I was at Howard, she didn't even realize she was my mentor. Just seeing her there, that was kind of being my unofficial mentor, knowing I wanted to become a lawyer and this black female attorney. And then when I started practicing, John, who was, even though he was my boss at the time, he became my mentor. And then there were other female attorneys that were practicing law that became my other kind of like mentors as well. They had the Black Lawyers Association, so they had a more formal mentor program. So that's where I met one of my other mentors, and it was just having these people around to give me advice. So I think mentors are great because as a starting out attorney, you're going to make mistakes, and it's about learning from those mistakes and you're not letting it kind of like engulf you, and obviously not making it lose your license as well. But mentors are very important.
Very important.
Yes.
So tell me, what about real estate has sort of caught your attention and got you, you know, focused for 18 years practicing in this area?
Helping people. Like that really is the grunt work. Is the contracts are the same boilerplate contracts with writers and kind of the paperwork, but each transaction is a new set of individuals. It's new people. I have clients that I represented when they were just buying their first property, and then they had children, and then they sold, and then they had another child, and they send me pictures of their dogs, of their puppies, of their kids. You know, I come back and represent them when they're buying another house, and that actually makes me see them like, you're progressing, and I'm helping you get this dream. Or I had like a client, it was a lady, and she was like in her 60s, and she bought a co-op for the first time. She's like, she literally was crying at the closing, and I was like, this is amazing. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people get to their dreams. And even though the paperwork is the same, the individuals are different. And I think that's what happens with law. And that's, I think, what lawyers do. We help.
We help. And it took me a while to realize that. Like I would watch Scandal and Olivia Pope and how, you know, she's a fixer and you know, after a while I was like, well, that's kind of what we do, right? We everybody brings us their problems. We figure out how to solve it. You know, if we've seen it before, if it's a new situation, we figure that out. And then we help them go along with it in their lives. Some areas are more rewarding than others. Though.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, don't talk about the litigation. I do transactional. There was, when I just started, it was for a family member. I remember going to like criminal court. And that judge like laid it on me. And I was like, I am never coming into criminal court again.
I don't blame you. I had a similar situation when I started out early on. I was doing divorce and matrimony, and this judge in Brooklyn, matrimonial court, man, she made my life miserable. Everything I did, she was like making me feel like I was stupid, and I was just like. Yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly. I remember leaving that court. It was like night court too. And I was like, okay, am I even worthy to be a lawyer at all?
That's how they make you feel. It's really, really hard.
You have to have a good kind of like, okay, no, this is what let me stay in the field that I know and I'm good at what I do.
Awesome. So if we could get into a little bit of what are some of the things that people should know with working with a real estate attorney, you know?
Everybody thinks like, you know, oh, real estate, I'll just, you know, get a near attorney to represent them. But it actually is really nuanced as far as the contract terms, because you're saving up a lot of money and you're putting your money on the line. So you want to make sure you understand those terms, whether it's, you know, getting a mortgage, whether it's time periods, and it's, you know, it's a lot of money that you're putting on the line. So you have to have an attorney that understands those terms. And the thing about real estate is, as I said, the paperwork may be the same, but the time periods and the deadlines are really important, because if you miss a deadline, you can potentially lose your down payment. So if you don't have an attorney that's focused on that area and they are in court or something, and your money's at risk. So knowing the contract terms, knowing different situations that come up that you can kind of like work around it to get you to that closing table. Because at the end of the day, I always tell clients, the seller wants to sell and the buyer wants to buy. So we're going to figure out about that. And it's negotiation. I love negotiating. So I don't like litigation, but I love negotiating. So if you're a good negotiator, that's also good, like real estate, because you're kind of always haggling with, like, we have riders and terms that you want in there. And you're like, well, okay, I'll leave this in there. I'll take this out on this situation. But on another contract, I must say, no, this has to go in there. So you have to know which kind of things are gives and takes, and what things you need to fight for and what things you don't need to fight for. Also, I remember when I just started practicing on another attorney, she said your reputation is paramount as an attorney. And in real estate, there's so many avenues where temptation comes and they're like, oh, just show up to a closing and have the person sign these documents. You never met the person.
Right.
And no, I remember when I just started practicing, I used to have mortgage brokers or realtors come to me and say, oh, we'll pay you $500 just to come and sit down and have them sign papers.
And you're like, no, they're not my client.
They're not my client. I need to go over it and explain it to them. Why explain it to them? Just have them sign it. No, I paid too much money for law school.
Yeah, you will lose your license. And I've met former real estate attorneys who have had that happen to them where they get caught up in mess, and next thing you know, they're disbarred.
Yes.
And now they don't have a career.
Exactly.
But they still got to pay for that license.
Yes, exactly. And I remember that's paramount. So I think that was one thing I always keep in the back of my head from that attorney. She said, your reputation is paramount and it can be gone in a minute. And that one client is not worth it.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I can't represent you.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing to say is I can't represent you and kind of like feel that you can do it, which is a good thing about being a partner as well. I love that part where I don't want to be your attorney.
Yeah, she's a partner. She's not just an attorney. Okay.
So reputation is very important, and being able to, that moral aspect of it, knowing what's your fine line and not putting your license on the line.
On the line. Yeah. And I think, I don't know that if attorneys of color fall into this a lot, but I hope that they are, if anyone is listening, that they really do take that to heart. Like, it's not worth it. Whatever that transaction is, whatever that matter is, if somebody wants to pay you under the table, there's a good reason for that. So you definitely don't want to put your license on the line and your reputation, even if you don't end up practicing. Like, you worked hard for that. Like, don't compromise yourself.
Exactly.
Like that.
Exactly.
That's good. And so you probably got good mentorship from the attorney.
So that was with. And the mentorship was phenomenal. Like, even for him, I remember him telling me just about negotiating. He was like, my first closing was hilarious. It was in the Bronx. It was, I was a bank attorney at the time, and the two attorneys were screaming at each other. Like, I mean, cursing, F you. Wow. And I'm like, this is attorneys, how they behave? And I'm calling him on my cell, and I'm like, what should I do?
Your first closing.
My first closing. I was like, are you like punking me or something?
Right.
This is hilarious. He was like, stand up, say, if you don't make a decision, now I'm leaving with the money. And literally I stood up and I said, I need to go. If you guys can't come to a decision now, I'm leaving with the money. And literally in a few minutes, everybody woke up and they came to a compromise and they worked it out and they closed. But then having the ability to call my partner back at the office and say, what should I do? So that mentorship was there, was good. So mentors, I'm 100% like, you have to have good mentors.
Right.
And they could be people of your own, like your own colleagues. And like my law school friends are some of my best mentors. My best friend, she does bankruptcy law, and she's a mentor to me as well, because I'll sometimes with things about the law firm, I'm just like, what should I do? And I'll get her ear and she'll give me advice. And I think that's also kind of things your peers can be your mentors. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody older than you or somebody that you necessarily would think you can have unofficial mentors as well.
I love that you brought that up. I was reading a book, this guy called Tim Ferriss. He has a book called Tribe of Mentors. So what he did was he interviewed a bunch of like successful people and asked them like the same questions. And so it's like a mentorship book that you're getting from, all these people who have been through and found some sort of success. So yeah, there is unconventional ways where you can get mentorship. I always like found it difficult. Like, how do I get a mentor? How do I ask?
Yeah, you think you have to go and ask somebody and be like, hi, my name is Rashidah. I just graduated. Can you be my mentor? And it kind of just comes organically as well. They had like I remember the Black Metropolitan Black Bar Association. They had a mentor program. There was another program, I think it was through the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association. They had a mentorship program. So they did have those formal programs, but then the mentors that I have through this day are the ones that kind of went organically. Like we met And it was just like having the conversations and just seeing that this person was somebody you can talk to.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. And I think I agree with that. I think that you definitely need people, because even for me, I started out on my own and I had to find other attorneys to like,
Which I'm just like, that's one thing I must say. I'm glad I had a partner when I started, because for all my friends and for you that started out on your own and just kind of like hooked up you, I'm just like, how did you do it?
Shingles, girl, I don't know. I still ask myself, like, what? How did you do that? So yeah, it's just, it's a journey, and like, we never know what our journey is going to be. Like, you thought you had it figured out and you just, ended up finding your way, and that's pretty much what I did. But it's great when you have that support. In hindsight, I'm like, I would have just definitely gotten that support, ahead of time. So you're doing real estate now. And what are some of the things that people maybe don't realize in going into purchasing a house that they may need to prepare for?
So the down payments and getting approved. I have so many clients that really don't understand the closing costs that come into it, and just the process of getting yourself prepared for that financial stake that you're about to have. The attorneys typically come in at the end of the like towards the end. You follow the process. You've been working with your realtor. You have a mortgage person, and then it'll be surprising when I start going over the numbers with them, and they're like, "Wow, I wasn't prepared for this closing cost." And you would have thought that the realtors or the mortgage person would have said, "This is how much you need to do," but they don't realize that. And then also for people of color as well, this is our first time doing this, so we don't have this mentorship of saying, "This is what we need to save up for. This is what the additional costs are going to be." There's different funding, different ways of different grant programs, or there's different down payment assistance programs that you can look into. And just being aware of explaining what the contract means. And I really take my time for clients. I'm just not having you sign a document. I really want you to understand what you're signing, because if you understand the process when your children or your family members come to you, you can explain it to them as well, because they really need to understand. I don't want you to feel like you just signed a document and you found a property and now you're closed.
Right. I like how you sort of brought that mentorship thread in there. And so like even in buying a home, you could find a mentor, in terms of like someone who came before you and brought a home, so that you know that you're prepared. And then of course working with the right attorney to make sure that you're educated on that. But that's dope. So what's next for you, Rashidah? Like,
oh my gosh, what's next? Well, my vacation is next, but also I know balance. Remember I said that at the beginning, you have to find that balance, which is why I'm glad I have a partner, because I can go on a vacation occasionally. But balance and just, finding things outside of law. Like I love law, but I also love like, running, and I love like, I do marathons. I wish I was doing the New York City Marathon this weekend, but I'm not. I'm going to be cheering for my friends.
So you've done marathons?
Yes, wow. I've done 4 or 5. I have to think, because I haven't ran a marathon in so long now because of the pandemic. But yeah, that's
how'd you get into that?
Funny enough, it was because of a friend. She had cancer, and I was going to raise funds for a charity for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So they kind of prepare you to run for charity. And I just started loving running.
Oh, wow.
And when I was in law, so once again with this thread, when I was studying for the bar exam, I live in Brooklyn, near Prospect Park. And I would get up in the morning and go and walk around the park. And I remember saying, this is a huge park. Like, I would see this lady and these people running. I'm like, how the hell how are you doing this? And then when I started running, the person was like, you're going to run this park. And I was like, no.
Wow.
No,
not one lap, right? Multiple.
Yeah, there were like multiple loops.
Wow.
And the guy was the first day he was like, just run to that stoplight. walk, run to the next stoplight, walk, run to the next stoplight. And then that's how I end up running the park the first time. And then now I can get up and run the park without thinking about it. I'm like, oh, it's just 3 miles. I was like, I can't believe it.
Just a 5K.
Just a 5K. Exactly.
Right.
Just wake up and do that. But it's just, so that's been my like side passion of
I love that.
And it gave me kind of a way to kind of like tune out the world and just kind of breathe and enjoy being outdoors and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you found a way to find balance with your career. Cause I know real estate could be a little, active.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Like
The deadlines. Yes.
Yeah. And so
fast paced.
Right. 100%. So it's allowed you to find balance. I think that's important because I think anything in life, we can enjoy it if we give it the right amount of attention and also give ourselves the right amount of attention. So I love that you found that, and you love to travel.
I love to travel. That's my other part of just like, I'm originally from Grenada, and I said I have my passport from when I was age 2.
Okay.
So I've been traveling since then, and I'm like, I have my stamps. So give me a passport. This pandemic has put me on hold. I'm just like, okay, I need to go back. But yeah, traveling was also another thing about every 3 months used to be I have to kind of get my break away from New York, whether it's just a weekend to like, you know, another state or a travel or getting on a plane somewhere to once again finding that balance and then coming back and resetting with clients and just like, okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
So yeah, travel is also another avenue, running, traveling. And then I have a little puppy who's 2 years old. So that's my Princess Nia, who is my friends say my obsession.
Yeah, obsession. So you're definitely like having a full life. That, you know, I just think it's important, like I said, like especially traveling just like resets the energy totally, because you're like going to a whole new different place. It's totally reset, and now you're back and you could like be refreshed.
Exactly. And you appreciate coming back to New York because you're like, you ate, you met some great people, you kind of relaxed, and now you're back to where you live, and you're like, you know what, this is great. This is why I do this work. And, you know, I can enjoy it. And so traveling, it just opens your mind to like so many different like people and cultures and everything. Traveling is amazing if you can do it.
100%, 100%. So I want to thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's already, I'm like, it seems like it's I'm like, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Glad you have this platform. And I said, this is amazing.
Thank you.
Just seeing you as just being an attorney as yourself, and having your own firm and doing what you do is great to see, inspiring to me as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I've been low-key watching her from afar, so she's been mentoring me. She didn't even know. But thank you for that. I appreciate you saying that. It always feels good for, you know, other attorneys of color, especially to get like validation. Like, I see you doing it, you know?
Yes. I think it's kind of like that thing where you give the head nod when you're like, there's another, I see you.
I see you.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Where can people find you if they want to, you know,
so definitely we have Instagram, Serpico Siddiqui PC.
Okay.
And Facebook. And then my office is located downtown Brooklyn on Court Street. So you can always reach me there.
And your website?
Website is sspclaw.com.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.